She's not much to look at, but she's the best in the fleet. I'll have her flying in no time.
Coming from the Plant Lives Matter studios in Central Time Zone, USA. The current time is 1:21 p.m. and this will be airing somewhere around 9:33 p.m., which is going to be the new time for the podcast to be released. I want to invite everybody to come like, subscribe, enjoy a little bit about plants. And I also want to let you know that this episode is called Disaster because that's what happens when an ecosystem is destroyed. Let's get into it.
How does a person end up getting so interested in plants? Or how they might get interested in perennials, plants that come back year after year. Well, let's get real about this. Plants are very interesting. Join me as I navigate through the world of plants. I am the navigator. The topic is more important than the person, and this episode is going to be more important than many episodes that you may have heard about plants, because this one's about restoration and renewal, and we're going to go from assumed history of origins of plants on into how to fix an area the right way after a disaster. And I'm dedicating this episode to anybody that has survived fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, any natural disaster, because we're not doing the right things to keep our land healthy. Plants keep our land healthy. And when we develop, we need to develop around plants and not around humans.
Let's talk about Hurricane Helene. Now, a lot has been discussed about Hurricane Helene, and a lot of people have gotten probably desensitized. But there's still a lot to discuss, and that discussion is important. We need to discuss Hurricane Helene and its effects on the ecosystem. For generations, people have been making the wrong choices in those affected areas and other areas around the country, quite frankly. They have put in golf courses, non-native plants, ignored the fact that root systems have to be involved in an area to create structure and hold banks. And I'm going to kind of pick out somebody that I hope they do something correctly, but I haven't seen it yet in a video, and I'm not picking on them. I just would like to point it out, and hopefully somebody will tell him to take a listen. So Justin Rhodes rebuilt his house right before Hurricane Helene. He has been very fortunate. His house is still there, but his greenhouse was eroded away, and his bank was eroded away, and his garden was eroded away. And him and his boys have been rebuilding that bank the way they think it should be, and getting it restructured. Now, what I'm not seeing is some consideration to the fact that the erosion is not done. The disaster is not over, and straightening up stuff is not going to be the complete answer. So, in this case, I would actually recommend taking rocks and making bales of rocks at the furthest point that you think massive flooding will occur, and do no development from the water line to that structure and make that structure go the whole length. Then I would start building the soil behind that structure. And, I talked about mosses the last time, and I'm going to talk about mosses again. Throwing some moss into that would kick off an ecosystem that would bring about security to that soil and make those blocks eventually part of the ecosystem. I'm not a big fan of man-made things, but there was a lot of erosion, and I think this is going to be needed in a lot of areas where there's embankment. Then you seed ferns. Ferns need to be in that block work as well as anywhere the moss is added. And then once the soil is put in, you need to think about 15 foot from that block to any kind of garden or unnative plant that you plan on putting in. You need to have at least a 15-foot swatch. Now, there's a lot of benefit to this. One, you can put in native flowers, and you can put in native plants, and they will make homes, structures, and pollination for your gardens. And we need these native plants. And directly behind the blocks, I'm going to recommend something that may seem off, but laurels are a natural plant. And if you put in laurels, and until the laurels take, put in some switchgrass or even some fescue, grasses with deep roots, this will make a perennial area come to life, and it will promote other plants. Now, in that 15-foot swatch, you can put native trees that bear fruit. You can put in native plants that bear fruit. Blackberries. Blackberries will thrive anywhere. Put those in there. This area needs to be usable not only to people, but also to animals. And it needs to be a strong, thriving, and undisturbed community of plants. And there I am with and I'm working on this, so please bear with me. I know I do it. We need to have plants that animals and people both can enjoy, but are native and will hold native soil. So, with that, I'm going into the web again because there's a lot of good resources in the web, and it just so happens that these are PDFs. So, Lady Bird Johnson's website has a PDF called 4 Steam Bank Repair Plants. And what we're talking about is we're making a special kind of system. Okay? And that system is called riparian, a riparian buffer. And anybody that doesn't do this is asking for disaster in the future. You need vegetation, you need a building setback. Like I said, this is a very good PDF. it says contact North Carolina State University, William_Lord at ncsu.edu. I don't know if that's current, but the PDF is awesome. So we're going to get shading from trees, regulated temperatures for aquatic species, plants, provide habitat and food, and travel corridors for smaller creatures. It also keeps them out of your farm. If they have a nice place to hang out, they're not going to be eating your stuff. So just keep that in mind. In-stream habitat, pools, riffles, debris, filters, transforms pollutants, and I'm going to get into that. This is also very important, especially since there has been a lot of pollutants released during Hurricane Helene. And roots provide soil stability. They hold the soil in place. So I'm going to say that two native plants that look beautiful together and would make wonderful bank structure plants, maybe about 3-5 feet away from the man-made stone bales. Betula nigra, river birch, and Corneus floridia, which is the native dogwood. Beautiful plants, and they have very deep fibrous roots. These things will hold stuff. Okay, so we're going to talk about minimalizing erosion. Everybody saw what this did. This was a disaster. This tore out lives and changed realities forever. Shallow roots on fescue. Now, fescue might be great to get something started if you have bare soil, but the roots are not deep enough. Switchgrass, however, has very deep roots. So you can mix it in, and it's a native grass, and it will grow anywhere. So you get in your moss, you get in your ferns, you add a little bit of switchgrass, not a ridiculous amount, you scatter it. And then you start planning to plant ornamental trees that are native and don't have shallow roots. The dogwood doesn't have shallow roots. They're tough. There's a plant called a cotton tree, I think, or a cotton bush. I can tell you from experience, no, it's a snowball bush. Anybody that knows what that is, put it in the comments, some kind of link or something. The snowball bush, when it's established, those roots will hold against everything. You can't pull them out with a series of trucks hooked to it. It just doesn't happen. You might even have trouble with a bulldozer. I'm telling you, the root system on that particular plant is crazy. And I believe it's a native plant. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm not an expert on this particular subject, but or any subject for that matter. I'm just really well informed. We're one ground cover. Right now we got bare soil, and we're moving it around. We're waiting for the next disaster. We're waiting for soil to be dislodged, go back into all the places it went to before. And the bad thing is that this is only going to be a light rain that will cause a large movement of water because there's nothing to hold that water in the ground. Okay, so we really need this. We need to fix this, and we need to do it the right way. And like I said, there's a lot of people trying to recover. There's a lot of people trying to do things that matter. But before you rebuild, you need to secure the soil around your home. And you need to do it the right way with native plants. So, seed mix for steam bank stream bank stabilization, again from that PDF, says fast growing non invasive grass. Now, a couple of these I use to build soil, so this is an added benefit. Annual rye, wheat, oats, some kind of grain. No fescue, no lespedeza, and you want native wildflower blends. I can't stress enough, the ecosystem has been damaged. Native plants. We have to rebuild the food structure for the animals that have limited space already. We have taken so much of their space. We need to have plants. Okay, so let's get into this. These are the recommendations and some other stuff again from that PDF. Great resource. And I'm just going to kind of throw this in and then I'm going to move on. It's Pasture Master Perfecta Mid Atlantic Mixture. There's a tag in here. It says 42.31% of hallmark orchard grass. Fawn Tall Fescue, Dairyland Magna Graze Alfalfa, Climax Timothy, White Clover, and other crop seeds, and inert matter and weed seed. Okay, I'm not hearing anything really fantastic in there, but I will tell you that if you can get some native clover seeds, they build soil, nothing wrong with those, throw those in. You need to have non-invasive native plants, and you need to get it built. Another note in here, and I'm going to stress it, is matting. You need like coconut core, burlap would be an option. No plastic netting. We want the nature to build, and we don't want any more chemicals in this soil. So there needs to be rebuilding. North Carolina State University already knows how to do this. They've got PDF on it. So, they need to do this. They need to do this in North Carolina. This should be a project. And some live stake plants mentioned in here is button bush and silky willow. Any native plant that will help build the ground is going to do wonders. Silky dogwood, nine bark, elderberry. I can't stress enough, elderberry is an eastern United States native plant. It is beyond all unfathomable things a great plant. It's a medicinal. It feeds birds. It also has a strong root structure. You can pull it out of the ground, but it's got a good root structure, and it's a shade plant for other plants getting established. It will reseed, it will spread, but it's not invasive because it's native. Red stem dogwood. Okay, so we need to add some of these native plants. And since we got another North Carolina up there group, I'm going to mention Permapastures Farms. And his son, sorry I don't remember the website, but you'll be able to find it, I promise. He's done this. He's went around kind of, I'll call it pirate gardening for a long time. And if he's dealing with more native and more established food forests that have deep roots, and another food forest person, of course, David's good, so we're going to mention him. But he's closer to me than North Carolina. We'll just say that. We just need to establish that there are people that know how to do this. They need to stop being separate entities. They need to work together. This is a disaster. We need to get communities together, people together, and instead of sending useless things, we need to start sending native seeds and native things that are native to North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, the areas affected by Hurricane Helene so that they can rebuild and get that structure. And now I'm going to switch over and we're going to talk about pollutants, but I'm not going to talk about the pollutants in a way that's going to and I'm doing a real quick search because I did not do that. I'm not going to talk about the pollutants or the polluter, and I'm not going to talk about digging up the soil and the things that are ridiculous that they're going to talk about. Okay. So here is the problem. There were barrels that were buried upstream of this disaster, but was involved in the disaster. They did get dislodged, they did move, and we have a problem. And by we, I mean they are not discussing how big this problem is. The streams that flow through the area that is affected by Helene go to aquifers through underground streams that we can't even trace. We would have to hunt down streams. All those streams let the water recede from the areas that were polluted. And the recidents, I think that's the right word, when the water went down, the water traveled underground, and this went possibly hundreds of miles downstream. The aquifers that have been fought over between Tennessee and Georgia may be affected, and I would recommend testing that water at the aquifers and also testing the water from the streams that are feeding those aquifers. Same would be true for water coming into the city of Greenville, South Carolina. 25 runs right from Asheville down to South Carolina into the Piedmont, a very sensitive ecosystem in its own right. And the water travels during flash floods almost parallel to 25. And that's just what you can see. That's not even what is traveling underground in the underground streams. This is huge, and nobody's talking about it. Now, here's the thing. If we plant native plants that are known to absorb and hold toxins and target the exact toxins that we want to remove from the water and the soil, we can reduce the effects of this. And I'm going to tell you that the damage is done. What is out there, and it's going to take decades to help clean this. And honestly, I wonder if plants could be used to help remove pharmaceuticals and possibly even forever chemicals. And then what would have to happen is those plants would have to be harvested and reseeded on a regular basis, every half a year or something, right at the end of the season. Dig it all up, chop it all up or something. or just cut the tops off so that the plant has no choice but to reach down into the earth, grab more material, and grow. And then that material needs to be tested and somehow destroyed properly. We have done enough damage to soil and to water that our children are going to be facing the disasters we have created. And this is serious. So there are plants out there that will target this. It's going to take a botanist. It's going to take somebody that really knows. And I hope there's some effort to make these offenders of the nature do something. Okay, moving on. Website is ncwf.org. Habitat, it's /habitat /native space pollinator or dash pollinator dash plants / shrubs. And it's got a beautiful picture of a robin and some berries on here. And I do not know what these berries are. So if you know, please share. It's a native shrub, and I'm sure it would be another thing I would add to the list just by seeing those robins. Okay, so we're going to talk about some more plants. Aromatic sumac. That plant probably would be great for helping build some soil. And we got American beautyberry, and so there's another native. It'll feed people and plants both, I believe. We need to verify that, but it'll definitely feed birds. And it also is a natural repellent for mosquitoes, so having it on your bank might be a great idea. Bushy St. John's wort. I'm just giving you some lists. There's that button bush again. So, getting some repeating. Here's one. Another wonderful plant. Calycanthus floridus. Native to southeastern region of the United States, but it has been found growing naturally in woodlands and forests, along stream banks, and can grow in all three regions in North Carolina, so this will work. Carolina allspice, the sweet shrub. We need to add that to the list. My elderberry. Can't go wrong with elderberry. Listed again. Here's another new one. Fetterbush. Lycona lucida is an evergreen shrub native to mid-Atlantic and southeastern regions of the United States and into Cuba. It is commonly found in bogs, swamps, and other moist habitats. This is a plant in low-lying areas that if you stick it in a low-lying area between mountains which do flood or do hold a lot of water, this will help remove those contaminants out of the soil. It drinks it up. I'm pretty sure this will be a great plant for that. It has pink bell-shaped flowers. It's going to be a pollinator. You can use it for hedge or screening, so it's going to hold a bank. Hoary azalea, rhododendron canescens, a deciduous shrub native to southeastern region of North Carolina and commonly found growing also in swampy areas along streams and in moist wooded landscapes. It's native. Put it in the ground. It's beautiful. It's a pollinator. Put it in the ground. It's going to help. Can make these banks absolutely beautiful. They don't have to be ugly and still maintain the earth. We're wanting to keep the earth that you want to use for your purpose clean, remove the toxins, hold the soil, and encourage animal life to live near you. And throw in some trees later that are going to become great producers for you. But you're going to have to test everything. Unfortunately, everything's going to have to be tested to see if it's safe before you eat it for a while, if you're downstream of that disaster with the barrels. So I want to add that you need to be aware that if you are downstream of the disaster, even if you weren't in the disaster, you need to test the plants and the food that you pull from your soil before eating it, because you don't know if a natural underground stream has affected your area. And we don't know how far the extent is. Everything flows to the Gulf. So let's think about that for a minute. Everything flows to the Gulf, and we don't know how far, how strong the contaminants are, what the dilution factor will be. This is real, people. We need to think. Okay, inkberry, Ilex glabra, a small evergreen shrub native to sandy woods, swamps, and bogs in the southeast also, along with coastal plains of the northeast. Inkberry gets about 5 to 10 feet tall, forms colonies by suckering and spreading stolons. Okay, so it's kind of going to act like bamboo, which in this circumstance is not a bad thing. It's native, and it's going to produce greenish white flowers, and they are a pollinator. It takes 2 plants to cross-pollinate, so you want a male and a female verified. It's a great source of nectar for bees. It gets dark purple blackberries on the female plant, and they persist into the winter, so they're a food source for animals in the winter if they make it that long. And you'll have to verify if they're also good for humans, but it definitely says eaten by deer, rabbits, bob white quail, wild turkeys, songbirds, and other wildlife, which means they're not going to be eating your garden. Plant this. They're not going to eat your garden. Okay, large witch alder. Large witch alder, Photherigylla latifolia. And I am terrible at this, so bear with me. I'll do the names as best I can. Research what I'm telling you. I'm just a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. Previously known as F major, is a deciduous shrub native, again, to the southeast, summits, slopes, stream banks, and wet meadows throughout the mountains and Piedmont of North Carolina. This is important. Piedmont areas of North Carolina and South Carolina are very delicate ecosystems, and we need perennials that are going to hold the soil and be native for native animals. They get brush-like flowers from the branches April to May. They look feathery, they're fragrant, they're very nice. They attract bees and butterflies. This is super important. Butterflies have to have a source to eat. They have to have something to eat, and they are an important pollinator, and we need to protect them. They also attract songbirds and, of course, deer. So it's a nice plant. There is a dwarf witch alder, Photherigylla gardeniae, I think is how you pronounce that. And it's a witch alder species that can be found on the coastal plains. Don't get that. Get the one that's meant for the Piedmont. Red buckeye, Aesculus pavia, small to medium deciduous shrub. You're getting a theme here. Shrubs. You need shrubs. And then we'll move to trees. So we get the moss. We get the moss established. We get ferns established. We add wildflowers, and the wildflowers hold the soil so it'll build and help build it. Clover, native, help build the soil. Then we place in shrubs and trees and space them out, and then we have an ecosystem. From there, let the birds and the squirrels and the rodents, whatever else you have, bring their own little mix into that area. They'll build it. Red chokeberry, Aronia arbustifolia. Okay, native shrub. It works in wet and dry thickets. It works in swamps and bogs. This is important. It's a plant that can handle too much and not enough water. We need to plant this. It gets 6 to 10 feet tall. It can do sucker colonies, but we're one to hold a bank, so this is not a bad thing. Red chokeberries are adaptable to different light and soil conditions as well. So if you're in a shady valley, you need to think about red chokeberry. Okay? It's the great native replacement for burning bush, which is a commonly planted but invasive landscape plant. So stop planting the burning bush and plant the red chokeberry. It's native. We got spice bush again. Again, we're talking shrubs. There's a theme here. Shrubs will help hold banks, but the trees have to be there too. And you need trees with deep roots. Pepper bush, sweet pepper bush, Clethra anifolia. Swamp rose, Rosa palustris. So again, I'm just reading this. It's ncwf.org/habitat/native pollinator native-pollinator-pollen plants/shrubs/. It's going to be relatively easy to find. It's going to get you a lot of information, volumes more than I have said. I didn't even cover, I probably covered 3/4. So get in there and check that out. Now, so I've done some searches on different things, and so somebody, and here's the irony on this, somebody in North Carolina sent a text to the University of Texas in Austin, or sent a message, and this was in June 26, 2009, but it matters today. So it's wildflower.org/expert/show.php?ID equals 4194 and front page equals true. Weird website. Go back, replay it. I may or may not get these in. I just want to mention these, and if you do research, you might accidentally find something that I didn't, which is good. So, it says, I live in North Carolina where most of the dirt is clay-based. I have a small creek behind my house that is eroding. The creek overflows when there's a heavy rain, and as a result, gradual erosion. They want to plant a row of trees and shrubs for erosion control and bank stabilization, along with privacy. And then it says Mr. Smarty Plants found the following shrubs and small trees do well in clay soil in North Carolina. And it's got the button bush, the dogwood, the hawthorn, green hawthorn, Crataegus verdus, green hawthorn, Physocarpus opifolius, common ninebark, Patelia trifoliata, common hop tree. There's a lot of things I haven't heard in here, and so might want to check into it. Equestrium hyamale, which is scoring rush horsetail, and native horsetail will hold soil. It's another It looks like ragweed, and maybe ragweed and goldenrod. I hate to say it, but they might be beneficial for this. Possibly beneficial to remove toxins, and that might be something to investigate. But this page comes with lots and lots of pictures. It comes with lots and lots of information, and a person needs to look at this. And I'm going to try to add these links. I need to add these links, but I want you to do some research for yourself. There are lots of things in here, but Osmunda cinnamomea. So I'm going to pull this one up. It says, and there's a capital L period after that. It's a cinnamon fern. It's a royal fern family. Its USDA symbol is OSCI. Found that interesting as well. So there's a bunch of image gallery in here, but for whatever reason it's not showing. But there's some database in here, and there's some information on how to find more information. So you need to go back and check that link, because that's probably the ferns we need in that structure. So again, check out, oh, this is part of Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. So ask Mr. Smarty Plants and Winston-Salem, North Carolina erosion control. If you put those things together in a search, bam, I guarantee you're going to find this. I'm just scratching the surface. I have no idea how long this podcast is going to be. I'm worried. I'm concerned for people that live in that region. They do not have the resources they need to rebuild properly, and nobody is thinking about future erosion that I have seen on any videos anywhere. Everything that's been done needs to be redone. There needs to be, and these are great. When I was growing up, there were places where banks caused real problems. They built terraced rock bales. They're still there. I'm in my 50s. These exact stone bales in galvanized wire are still there. My only complaint about them is they never put any soil or material on top and never made any kind of embankment out of it. And I thought that was a travesty when I was young. I think it's a travesty now. And that's how I would do different, because we want to preserve the scenery, protect the people, and clean the environment. It's all available with plants. So I need to find something, and I haven't found it yet. So I'm going to talk about something related but unrelated, because it won't work for us. But we'll have our own variety, no doubt. There is a study about plants from Chernobyl that not only did they evolve, they became able to thrive off of nuclear waste and nuclear energy. And this goes back to toxins. There's a study. You can look it up. You can watch it. It's available. I really highly recommend doing a search about that. It's going to blow your mind what plants can do. Now, I've covered the plants because it's a perennial channel, but I'm going to backtrack. Why? Because I want you to say, what is he doing? This is out of order. And what do I need to know? None of the building of the soil or the growth will be possible without introducing microorganisms and microfungi to the soil after you've landscaped it to hold the earth. You need to put pollination in there, or spores. The fungal spores need to be spread about the whole entire area. You can do this with edible mushroom varieties that are native, chanterelle for one, wood ear for another. Any kind of spores and mushrooms that you can add to this terraformed landscape, because that's what we're doing. We're terraforming. The fungus came before the plants. The microorganisms in the soil came after the fungal growth and the decay of the fungal growth. That's how soil is built. It's historically proven. So we need to get some spores in there. Luckily, there are two mushroom experts, one in western North Carolina and another in northern part or north-ish part of South Carolina. And if they would get together and take spores and spread them through the valleys one time, just spread the spores. Later on, they'll just grow. And once we know soil is safe, that the mushrooms test safe to eat, it's a food source. And, I hate to say it, this is going to affect hunters. So if you're a hunter or you know a hunter, they need to listen to this podcast. The areas that have been affected by Hurricane Helene need to have food plots and spores put down and other plants, but we're going to need to test that meat. And I know that's going to make some guys angry, but everything downstream of that waste is potentially toxic. It's a reality. And, I don't know if it's, a fund site reality. Is all this area going to have to be studied, researched, and possibly areas condemned? I don't want to mention that. I don't want to talk about it. But, if you've got an area that's as toxic as some of these military sites that we've got around the country that are on these lists, or mining sites and the downstream areas of mining sites that are on these lists, these fund sites, fund, not fun, F-U-N-D, fund sites. I don't want that to be the case. I do not want that to be the case. I think people need to enjoy nature and enjoy it. And I'm typing, so I apologize, I got quiet. I've been trying to do research, and there's really not a lot of good research out there. So I'm going to just give you an AI overview and tell you that there's some YouTube videos, but there needs to be some toxin removal research. And this is good for not only a disaster area, but for an area that you want to have better, cleaner crops from. Farmers, you need to think about this. Gardeners, you need to think about this. Plant and animal lovers, you need to think about this. So, AI overview from Google. Here we go. To remove toxins from soil using perennials, which was my search term, a process called phytoremediation can be employed. Phytoremediation. The remedy by plants. That's what that word means. Where specific plants with high contaminant uptake abilities are grown in contaminated areas, effectively drawing toxins from soil. And I wonder why fund sites don't do this. It makes me angry. I've been saying this for a decade. Pardon me for getting angry. But this is how this is done. Then you deal with the plants that are toxic. This is how it's done. So, with high contaminant uptake abilities, these plants are known to get toxic, are grown in contaminated areas, effectively drawing toxins from the soil and their tissues, which can then be harvested and disposed of properly. Some effective perennial plants for this include, I love this, sunflowers. Part of the sunflower family is the sunchoke. The sunchoke is probably the best sunflower ever to exist. It grows multiple roots, it spreads, you don't have to keep planting it, it comes back every year, and it will remove toxins from your soil. If you're not using a sunchoke, you are failing your environment. Indian mustard. Willows. Willows draw water. Willows that are native by banks will give great shade for fishing and for just lounging by a stream, and they will remove toxins. Then you just harvest up the leaves, you vacuum them up, and you get rid of them. You bag them up to be tested, and you send them off to be destroyed. Alfalfa, milk vetch, many grasses, and I'm pretty sure switchgrass is going to be on that list. And this just barely touches the power of plants. Perennials are awesome, and you can clean up soils. So I'm going to add one more website, gardeningknowhow.com. They have a topic in here, and I'm trying to find out who wrote it. I'm not seeing it, but here you go. Clean up soils, or clean up soil, plural, or just soil, with plants, hyphen, using plants for contaminated soil. That's the title of the article. So go gardeningknowhow.com and go to this Clean Up Soil with Plants article. Sure, it'll be easy enough to find. Here it talks about phytoremediation again. And how can plants clean soil? You know, they're going to pull the contaminants out of the ground. It's not rocket surgery, people. Governments can do it. It costs almost nothing. They could spend the money to plant perennials, never have to spend it again, improve the ecosystem, improve the water quality of the downstream of these plants, and do it while restoring disaster areas. Why aren't we doing this? Sunflowers again, mustard greens, willow trees, poplars. Poplars are a lightweight, usable wood. They grow fast. They have deep roots. But they are a fast-growing tree. You can re-establish an area with poplars very quickly. If you don't want to even access that area, you just throw tons of poplar in there and it will take over. It'll grow. And then everything else will come after that once those poplars have lost their leaves in the winter. Alpine pennycress. And I don't know anything about this plant, but I'm going to mention it because it says here, researchers have discovered it can absorb several heavy metals when soil pH is adjusted to be acidic. If the soil's not acidic, you're going to have to make it acidic for some of these plants to work. So pennycress is one of those plants, but it reduces heavy metal exposure. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to go off topic. All those wonderful, big, huge agricultural companies that have farmland but don't own their mineral rights, you're in trouble after this podcast, because extracting minerals from the soil is mining. It doesn't matter the method of the mining that you use. This is a very uninvasive method of mining. These plants can be used to remove the heavy metals and the toxins, which may be able to be recycled and reused in a safe way to produce the chips and the technology that we need to thrive. And nobody seems to be doing this. And mining companies that are wondering where their money's coming from, here's your new method of mining. It's going to take you a little bit longer, but the mine never runs out of material. Can I say that again? The mine will never run out of material. Also, the fun sites that are so horrible, like the copper mines out in the Northwest, go out there and plant plants. Also, make some kind of hydrolysis machine to drop down in there and extract good hydrogen and oxygen, releasing it back into the environment and removing the toxins on plates, and then recycling that stuff to make the things you want to make. Why are people not doing this? I don't understand. I've actually said this before. I tried to get somebody to fund me to do this exact thing and research, and nobody was on board. Nobody. Takes too long. It doesn't sound practical. It's nearly free. Solar panels, cables, plates, hydrolysis. Okay. Then everything downstream from these places, you put plants that extract minerals, and you mine the plants once a year from the surface and reseed and regrow until the land becomes safe. And you have somebody test the land every year to see what the effects of this is and get a real study going. Okay, off topic is done. Hope you like that. I want some comments. I really need some comments. I need you to share this one. This one is important. Share it. I need this shared because I may die and nobody will have this information. We need to pass on information, people. Okay. Now, it says here also several aquatic plants take heavy metals out of the soil, including water ferns and water hyacinth. You get native plants and you put them in the contaminated bodies of water to remove the contaminants. Plants grow in water, plants grow into the soil. Duckweed, the big problem, may actually be a mining miracle. It grows fast. I don't know what minerals it's uptaking, but some research needs to be done into duckweed. Because it's already there, it's already causing a problem, why not make it a solution? All right. I think this is a good place. I think this is where I need to end. I have no idea how long this podcast is. I have no idea what I have done to this channel. Did I kill it? Did I boost it? No idea. And that's not the point. The point is we have a lot of fixing to do, not just in the areas affected by Hurricane Helene, but lots of areas around the world are either contaminated or eroding. And the answers have been setting in front of us for as long as mankind has been searching for answers. And we're not listening. This is the Perennial Falcon podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I am the navigator because who I am does not matter. The subject matter does.